You know, the Roman Empire in the early 1st century was often seen as the perfect empire. They had incredible military power, expanding their territories and then installing Roman political control everywhere. They balanced military might with softer methods like entertainment, technology, and trade, making Roman rule generally accepted and even enjoyed in most places. Now, let's talk about Palestine. It had been influenced by Greek culture since 312 BCE, and this influence grew even more after the Romans took over. The Jewish elite, who had become adopting Greek culture, supported the Romans and enjoyed all the perks that came with it. But this created a big divide in Jewish society. The Sadducees, who were part of the Jewish elite, held the majority in the Sanhedrin, the Jewish ruling council, and defended Herod, the Roman-backed king. On the other hand, the Pharisees, who later became known as the Zealots, were strongly opposed to Roman rule and the influence of Greek culture on their religion. Corruption was rampant. The Roman governors and local authorities ignored the struggles of ordinary Jews, and most of the wealth from Jerusalem's markets went straight to the elite. This made the common people really angry. Josephus, a Jewish historian who fought in the revolt, blamed the Roman governors for causing much of this anger. Governors like Pontius Pilate and Gessius Florus were known for their cruelty and incompetence. Florus, in particular, did something that sparked outright rebellion. In 66 CE, he plundered the Holy Temple in Jerusalem to fund his own projects and erected statues of Emperor Nero and himself. This was a huge insult to the Jewish people, as the temple was the center of their religious and social life. In response, the Jews rebelled. The Zealots, a group of anti-Roman Jews, started by attacking and wiping out the Roman-backed elite Greeks in Caesarea. Random attacks on Roman citizens followed throughout Judea, especially in the north. The Romans tried to quell the rebellion, but their forces were spread too thin and they suffered a major defeat at the Battle of Ben Horon. Emperor Nero was furious and sent General Vespasian and his son Titus to crush the rebellion. They returned to Judea with a larger force and brutally suppressed the uprising, killing or enslaving thousands of Jews. So, after their initial successes, things took a turn for the Jewish rebels. The remaining Jewish rioters fled from Caesarea to Jerusalem. Once there, they stopped paying taxes in the temple and began to kill Roman soldiers stationed in the city. The Zealots and another radical group called the Sicarii managed to overrun the Roman military garrison in Jerusalem. This victory boosted the morale of the Jewish people and support for the Zealots grew. However, this sense of dominance didn't last long. By 67 CE, the Romans, led by Vespasian and his son Titus, had reclaimed all of Judea and wiped out the remaining Jewish rebels. After a grueling 47-day siege, the Jewish stronghold of Utapata fell under Roman control. The Romans were now marching towards Jerusalem. The mood among the Jewish leaders in Jerusalem, mostly the Sadducees, shifted from joy to panic. Realizing the revolt was doomed, they urged the Zealots to surrender to save as many lives as possible. But the Zealots refused. Fearing an uprising from those who supported a peaceful resolution, the Zealots and the Sicarii executed the moderate leaders and displayed their bodies publicly as a warning. By 68 CE, nearly all the moderate leaders in Jerusalem had been killed, not by the Romans but by their fellow Jews. As the Romans approached, a civil war erupted in Rome. Vespasian became the new emperor in 69 CE, leaving Titus to lead the campaign in Judea. By 70 CE, the Romans were at the gates of Jerusalem, laying siege to the city. Panic spread among the defenders. Different Jewish factions had conflicting strategies, which hindered the defense efforts. The Zealots, led by John of Giscala, pushed for total war. To force the city's inhabitants to fight, they burned the food supply stored by the Sadducees and Pharisees in anticipation of the siege. This desperate act did rally many to the cause. According to Josephus, nearly 1 million Jews, including women and children, took up arms to defend Jerusalem. But it also had devastating consequences. The city's inhabitants and soldiers began to starve. Those who didn't starve suffered from severe malnutrition. As the siege dragged on, the Romans set up camp outside the walls and resorted to a brutal tactic. Anyone trying to escape the city was crucified and displayed on crosses or walls facing Jerusalem. This terrifying sight left the Jewish population with two choices: fight or face a humiliating and painful death. After a grueling 7-month siege, the Romans finally breached Jerusalem's walls in the summer of 70 CE. The Roman soldiers poured into the city, showcasing their superior military strength. They forced the zealots into brutal street battles, systematically destroying and burning the city and slaughtering the Jewish inhabitants as they advanced. The zealots in the Sicaria made a final stand at the temple. Despite several attempts by the Romans to breach its walls, they eventually set fire to the Holy Temple. The once sacred site that had given hope to thousands of Jews was now engulfed in flames. It seemed like God had abandoned the city. This was the most devastating blow to Judea. After the temple fell, the rest of the city was quickly plundered and burned to the ground. The remaining Jewish resistance was crushed, and by September 70 CE, Jerusalem was entirely under Roman control. According to Josephus, more than 1 million Jews were killed during the revolt. Many Jews were sold into slavery, with 70,000 of them taken back to Rome to build the Roman Colosseum. The destruction of the temple marked a significant turning point in Jewish history. The temple was never rebuilt, leading to the rise of rabbinic Judaism. Rabbis became the new religious leaders, taking over from the high priests. The synagogue replaced the temple as the center of Jewish life. With the Jewish diaspora, the Torah became the most invaluable source of knowledge and guidance for the Jewish people. And the fall of Jerusalem and the destruction of the Second Temple were catastrophic for the Jewish people. The city lay in ruins, and the once thriving Jewish population was decimated. Those who survived faced enslavement or exile. The brutal suppression of the revolt marked the end of Jewish political autonomy in Judea for centuries. However, the Jewish spirit proved resilient. The loss of the temple necessitated a transformation in religious practice and community structure. Rabbinic Judaism emerged as the new form of Jewish life. Rabbis became central figures, guiding the Jewish people through interpretations of the Torah and establishing synagogues as places of worship and community. The diaspora spread Jewish communities throughout the Roman Empire and beyond. Despite the dispersion, these communities remained connected through their shared faith, customs, and the study of the Torah. The resilience of the Jewish people and their ability to adapt ensured the survival and continuation of their cultural and religious identity. Over time, the memory of the Great Revolt and the destruction of the temple became a symbol of perseverance and faith. The Jewish people continued to pray for the restoration of Jerusalem and the rebuilding of the temple, keeping their heritage and hope alive through centuries of hardship. In the following centuries, the Jewish diaspora played a significant role in the cultural and intellectual life of many regions. Jewish scholars, merchants, and thinkers contributed to the societies they lived in while maintaining their unique identity. The story of the Jewish Revolt and its aftermath is a powerful testament to the enduring strength and resilience of the Jewish people. Despite facing immense adversity, they adapted, survived, and continued to thrive. This history serves as a reminder of the importance of faith, community, and the unyielding spirit that can overcome even the greatest of challenges.